Get into it. Hello, today I'm joined by my guest, a name that most of you will be familiar with, Mr. Ben Madden from Digital Sparks. How you doing, Ben?
Good, thank you, David. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Nice to sort of have property royalty with me, and I say that jokingly, but you are everywhere at the moment, and I suppose that's the overall point of getting that kind of digital and video and that media awareness out there. Everywhere I go, all my streams, so it's Instagram, TikTok, is Ben Madden walking up to the camera, really confident, saying, I've sold £1 billion of property, and this is what I've learned. Now, what you won't know is that he's sold £1 billion of property. I've calculated he's made somewhere between 10 million and 20 million pounds on commission, but we can query the figures later. But he's also paid a huge amount in VAT. He's had to employ staff, and those are all the bits of the story that we don't tell, but we tell the good bits. So I suppose, Ben, my question to you is, why, after all these successful years of selling property, being involved in property, did you choose I suppose the career, it's not a career change necessarily, it's an allied, you're almost taking just one step to the left, but um what kind of motivated you to get into digital media production?
I think, firstly, thanks for that introduction. I think you've almost hit the nail on the head with how you just introduced it, that we put content out talking about our successes and we've sold £1 billion of the property over the last 20 years. And that's really a great headline to get people to engage with a lesson that you've learned. But you also point out that the VAT contributions and the 300 people that have worked for me in that period of time, we were a responsible employer. We did great things for those people and really cared about those people. And maybe actually it's the less glitzy, the less glamorous, the stuff that people don't think about is what I've learned over the last 10 years. More than anything, is what builds trust and a relationship. So in the real world, when you're on evaluation, you build rapport based on shared interests and what you have in common with those people, and not I'm not talking about we sold the property three doors down the road. Yeah, okay, you have something in common in that respect, but actually, our children both love dance and they go to the same dance class, and
Yeah,
that is a much more
yeah,
interesting conversation because we love our children deeply, and so we can talk for 10 minutes about our kids, have nothing to do with the property, and you're going to give me that. I'm going to be your agent of choice now because we've got this lovely thing in common. And I think what I've learned over the years is that if you can do that on video, if you can talk to an audience at scale about stuff that's really much more interesting to them than I've just listed this, I've just sold that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, by the way. I'm not one of those criticizing people for talking about success because you do need to provide some credibility about what you do. But yeah, that pivot was massive for our first business, and I've learned to enjoy it a lot more, and I like the idea of agents and property professionals generally all taking this concept, amplifying it. Of course, they will use digital sparks, great, but you actually don't need to use us. You just pick up your iPhone, you can film yourself doing anything you want, talking about anything you want, and that will build huge credibility locally as long as it's real. And I'm remiss to use the word authentic because it used to be a word I really liked, but now it just seems to get banded around all the time, doesn't it?
it is really tough. They used to say, what was it? Sincerity is the hardest thing to fake, but if you can, then you're going to make yourself a really good valuer and estate agent. But um, the truth is, you're right. That sense of authenticity, there is ourself. We're going to get deep here now, but there's ourselves, and then there's the self that we would rather present to the Instagram world. It's the self that you're going to put onto TikTok, and that needs to be, and we're taught anyway, and almost intuitively we pick this up that it should be the best versions of ourselves. It should be when we're looking our best, we're feeling our best, and we're sharing the shiny bits of our lives. But I think you're right, and I think that it goes far more deeper than that. That when we can take bits of life that are not necessarily shiny, but there's a great commonality to it, so we all share it. I think that's when we make a greater connection, and then human connection, dot 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 dot. The end result is trust, and that's as estate agents, that's the should be the first commodity that we consider that we're selling. It's that trust, and you can only. And I'm so glad that you brought this up, Ben, because if you want to see Ben and his very, very professional crew in action, then come to the round conference on the 11th of December. They're going to be there doing their thing. But the theme of this year's round conference really is in that kind of world of digital technology and faceless AI, where all our social media streams are full of emojis and long M dashes, and we're all sounding the same. How do we then stand out? Because is there a sense for you, Ben? I mean, I watched your presentation recently in Wrexham, but is there a sense in for you that there's sort of, you can use technology and you can have AI on board and all of that sort of stuff, and you can use it for quick and perhaps easy wins. But as humans, essentially, a state agency particularly has remained a human to human business, or at least should do. We should be fighting for that. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So I remember a few years ago getting into a reasonably heated conversation with someone that wanted to bring on board a piece of technology that would remove almost the need for agents to register an applicant and have that initial point of contact. Oh, sorry, not just applicants, also prospective sellers. And it was going to be completely digitalized. And and I made the argument that that's our first opportunity to build a bit of a relationship.
yeah,
And so this was, I would say, approximately 4 years ago, and it got reasonably heated. And the point I tried to make at the time was that I think a state agency is. It, I mean, sorry, I don't think I'm going to tell it how it is. A state agency is a wildly important industry in this country. Home ownership, driving the economy. Um, we help people achieve their aspirations. We play so many roles and so many parts in someone's life when they need to move that 3 to 12 month window when we're a part of their life, we're a very big deal in their life for that period of time. And the comparison I made was to travel agents that 15 years ago, you booked a holiday, you walked up the high street, you went into Thomas Cook, you got a
yeah,
million brochures out, and you looked at this and you looked at that. And what happened to those jobs when everything became digitalized? Other than the occasion you see a flight center or a very sort of niche high end travel
yeah,
agent, everything's online. And I don't think a state agency, it would be appropriate for a state agency to travel in the same direction. So I think the people side of this business, and I don't want to get into the cliches, I really want to avoid them, but the personal side of this business is what puts people at ease. It's what builds trust. It's what gives you confidence to make that huge decision because there's someone, I'm looking them in the eye, I believe what they have to say, I know they're here to help me. I'm going to make the right decision. So if we remove that, if we become too digitalized, if we use AI to communicate with everybody online, if we, I said this at the Kerfuffle conference, if everybody's using AI to do everything, then we are carbon copies of each other.
yeah,
You just mentioned it, the M dash, the long M dash. When you see it,
yeah.
or I don't know if you've noticed this. I've noticed more and more that responses, comments, and I even had it at the weekend on WhatsApp. People are using ChatGPT to send me just what I think are quite
Yeah.
quick messages, which is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
wild
yeah.
to me.
We are becoming trained to sort of use that as our crutch almost. And
Mm.
there is look, there's evidence out there that as a result of that, we are perhaps scarily in cognitive decline because we're not stretching out those muscles. But so in a world where we are sort of trying to fight for authenticity, in a world where we are trying to make that human connection. Is it then fair to say, coming back to digital sparks, that video is one of those rare mediums where actually you can still make a connection with somebody and you can still engender trust and it's far more authentic because you can tell. I mean, I know there's some very good video avatars out there, but let's face it,
Mhm.
th- they have tells, there's sort of the rhythms and the patterns in
Extra
their
fingers.
speech. I've seen the digital Toby Martin out there. He's lovely, but the real life one's even lovelier. Um, I just I think that video for me, and almost the more raw the video, the better in some cases because it's a slightly
Yeah.
more authentic. But video for me is that medium now that allows you to connect with other human beings because they can see you and they kind of buy a version of you before they've met you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that in a society is more connected than ever, we feel more alone because the genuine human interaction. I mean, this sounds awful, but I don't remember the last time I called a mate. We might text each other. I've got plenty of mates that
Yeah,
I'll send messages to and stuff, but actually pick up the phone and call. Whereas if I go back in time 10 years, I would be on the phone to a mate most evenings driving home, just catching up what's going on. So we've sort of, we're less and less connected, and so I think we get our connection now. I get my updates about my friends on my social media platform. I know what they're doing because
yeah,
they post about it, and if they don't post about it, then that's maybe the one time when I would pick up the phone and call them because I haven't seen them put something on social media for a week, and I think, what's happening? Maybe something's wrong. So video, I think, is the way we now continue to connect to each other better than photos. Photos feel more choreographed. I'm just going to show you the picture where I look wonderful, as opposed to a video where, it is a bit more real. And you're right, the more raw, the more, I think, the more you demonstrate maybe a, oh God, I've got to get away from this word authenticity, but it just feels more powerful when you haven't overly polished it up and it's real and it means something and you just needed to say it. And I'm not saying it just needs to be that. It should be a blend, actually. If you're thinking professionally, you should certainly have a blend of real, honest, raw content, slightly more polished. And people are still sort of, I think some people are getting their head around being on video and they want to make sure they look a certain
yeah,
way. And that's okay. I think most people start their video career in that, or video journey, with that in their mind, and then get more comfortable. And after a couple of years, they're getting out of bed, the hair's everywhere, they're an absolute mess, but they've got to send this video and they're cool with that. So yeah, it's I think we used to think of photo. What's the saying? A photo's worth 1,000 words. Is that
yeah,
right?
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so I
yeah.
think a video is worth 1,000 photos. Actually,
Okay. All right. I like that. I like that. Let's look at the sort of things that Digital Sparks is doing because and then I can tell you I've not read your prospectus necessarily, and I don't know precisely all the services. You can tell us a bit about that, but I can tell you just as a layman in the industry who sees a lot of the content out there, I can now spot a Digital Sparks client because the video quality is crisp, it's well lit. And more importantly, and I think this is also skill in itself. In fact, I watched we're segueing Ben again,
go
but
do
I
it.
watched an interview with Denzel Washington who said, "Oh yeah, no, I give my performance, but it's the editors, it's the directors that have the kind of final cut and the creative say on it." And in the same way, I see lots of your content out there, and I can tell it's your content because I think you've got great skill in spotting the cuts that make great reels, that make great snippets that want you to watch, that lead you to want to watch more, that give you just enough, a little bit of a taste of the flavor of the conversation. So I've seen you're doing some fantastic stuff as promo material. So I've seen some of Kirsty Franks' stuff out there, which is superb. And let's face it, if a marketing expert trusts you to do their stuff, then it must be good. I've seen Angie Cooney's new podcast out there. And I've sort of seen the other things that you're doing. I've seen the work that you've done at our conferences. So just, for people who are watching this that perhaps haven't heard of Digital Sparks before, first of all, where have you been? But secondly, what are you able to help us with?
So, firstly, I'm just going to have to. Obviously, we're going to send this to Kirsty, but you're absolutely right to point out that a marketing expert comes to us for the video. I mean, we were thinking about that should be the tagline for the business moving
Yeah.
forward. Uh, but Kirsty is brilliant on video and produces great content. But the the, the the point you made at the start about sort of the edit is where all the action happens. I mean, we look for a very well produced professional piece of content. So the lighting and the sound, which from a social media perspective are crucial in order for the algorithm to encourage others to view your content. But yeah, for me, it is the edit, it is the quality of the videographers we have and the editors we have, but also sort of the learned experience. We've spent 10 years, 20 years in agency, 10 years of that trying to work out the best way to do video. And we've made all sorts of mistakes. I was telling someone a few weeks ago that something popped up on my Facebook as a Facebook memory and cringe factor to the extreme. I cannot believe what I used to think good looked like. Absolutely awful. Look a little bit like a homeless humanities teacher that I thought this is the look I should be going for.
I've seen you
Already,
reading bedtime stories to kids during lockdown on video, and in fairness, it looks like your brother rather than you. You know, it's a different version of you.
yeah. I mean, look, lockdown. It impacted us all in different ways, David. I don't want to get too heavy on this, but that was our almost most extreme light bulb movement. So there was one particular. We used to do a Facebook live twice a week, and the concept was I had at the time my daughter was 4, she might have just turned 5. We had a newborn baby in the house, and you know what lockdown was like. It was intense, and you're trying to entertain children, and you're stuck in the house. And lockdown 1 week. I guess we were lucky with the weather actually and getting outside. But we decided we would do a Facebook Live for local, well, for anyone really, but it was more targeted at our local sort of market. And it was 20 minutes where you put the kids in front of the Facebook Live and you'd go have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. And something popped up the other day, and it was the episode where it really sort of took off. And it's me singing Disney songs.
Yeah.
I mean, I must have been on the verge of a breakdown that I would actually do that. As we had all the cuddly toys from my daughter's bedroom, and so we'd bring up, I don't, a Moana doll, and I'm singing Moana, and I'm looking back at this and I'm thinking, lockdown must have been tougher than I remember because I am,
But that's you. But what we forget about lockdown is that we were reduced to being more human. It suddenly mattered to us. We were all out there on our doorsteps clapping for the NHS. We thanked everybody that was out there risking their lives, and we somehow felt a lack of that human connection because we've been told to stay at home. So you desperately try and reach across that digital ether to reach with people, and
yeah,
you doing that, yes, on an average Thursday, that's going to seem like Ben's lost his mind, but actually in the spirit of lockdown, it's so human and it's so and and let's just face it, I mean, no one did it for commercial gain, but if you were in front of that audience during lockdown and you were able to maintain that kind of level of contact, you did win out of it because your community saw you and your clients saw you. You weren't somebody who said, "Oh, I've got nothing to sell you today, so therefore I'm not going to talk to you." You actually say, "Oh, I've got nothing to sell you, but I'm going to read your kid a bedtime story, or I'm going to sing a Moana song, and if that works for you, then great." And I think that's a beautiful thing that we forget about lockdown for just a little moment.
yeah, yeah, I completely agree. It was the concept was I want to entertain my 4 year old. I want to involve my 4 year old in this carnage that is life for a few months. And you're right that the net position at the end of all that was our business became almost, it almost amplified the awareness of our business locally because we were just doing something to help others. And it was a bit fun and it was a bit silly, but it was also it came from a place of caring, I guess. And so yeah, so that I sort of pulled you into a different direction there. But that specific time and video at that point is what made us realize that the power of video and using it on social and ability to talk to people. So for Digital Sparks, that's exactly what we do. We help property professionals achieve the same sort of thing by talking honestly and openly about what's important to them. And the way we do that is when we onboard a client, we want to know in masses of detail who they are, what they are, where they came from, what's important to them. And I'm talking both personally and professionally. We want to understand their market. We want to help them to present not just as themselves, but as themselves in a way that relates to their market and what's important to their market that they have in common with their market. So housing is a really easy, headline that most people that live in town A are interested in what's happening to the property market in town A. So we onboard our clients. we get into a very, very detailed client briefing structure, and then we come up with a plan and we have them in the studio producing content. They'll spend the entire day with us. Actually, we can also go to them now to their premises or maybe to their local town, and we'll produce 4 months worth of content in a single day. It'll be scripted, it'll be put together, it'll be highly structured. We'll create some content that builds around, works around trust and highlights experience and expertise and the things that um, clients expect to find in a high quality agent, but we'll also work on the rapport side and we'll talk about what's important to them to build genuine relationships. I'm very anti-viral. I don't like content that's about
Yeah,
virality.
I've heard that because that's also an un it's unnatural, but it's also almost forced. Sometimes you can tell content that has been designed to go viral. It's very often controversial, so it's not
Mhm.
necessarily authentic. It's trying to be provocative,
Yeah.
which with members, and let's face it, the members of the public that we're looking to try and reach as estate agents, we don't need to rile them up. They've got enough going on in their lives.
Mhm.
It's a hard enough process as it is. We
Yeah.
just want them to be relaxed that they're in safe hands at the end of the day. And I don't think you need to go doing that. But clients that are looking to use video, let's just break it down very briefly. There are different reasons why I would come to you. So I might come to you and say, Ben, I'm looking to build profile. I'm looking to build. I've got another business venture that I want to do. Everybody knows me as X. I want now want to be Y. Um, can you help me forge in that direction? And then there are some people who say, no, all I want to do is I've got a business, it's successful, but I'd like to make sure that I remain front of mind with that customer and that public. I just want content that kind of just, relates to the everyman and the everyday situation. So there are different ways we can use video content. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
is there
I
anything
think
else I'm missing?
the most important piece around video is that it allows you to be consistently present. And so, what we want to do is ensure that you're creating content that's enjoyable to watch, it's engaging, maybe it's, I mean, the obvious term is that it brings some value to the audience. And value could be entertainment, it could be inspiration, it could be pure education. But we want to create content that genuinely offers some value to your audience, not just for the sake of it. And as long as you are providing value, most people that engage with your content or follow you will be happy to see more of your content. And if they're happy to see more of it, it means we can talk to them almost on a, well, our schedule would be 3 times a week. We would like to talk to them with video content, so they're constantly seeing it. And we can use that to position any person or any business however we want. So someone I spoke to yesterday is about to launch a new arm to their business, and they want to be very specific around the content they want to create to launch this extension of who they are and what they are. Others will maybe have reached what they believe is a sort of glass ceiling in their marketplace, and they want to talk to a new audience within their market. And they haven't been doing a lot on social, and so social is a good opportunity to do that. Others maybe want to amplify their current position. So uh, a great way and a tip for people to use social media is if you're using it really effectively is once a valuation is booked, make sure that person, if they're on social media, you send them your social media channel for them to get a feel for who you are in advance of the appointment. By doing that, we know categorically in our own business that your fee point and your conversion rate will both improve because they feel like they know you and they like you and they've already come to terms with you're the sort of person I want to work with. So there's lots of ways that social media and video combined can benefit businesses.
Lastly, Ben, if I could just push you to almost repeat um, the part of your presentation that you gave in Wrexham, because I think what I love is when professionals who have got an excellent, outstanding service to offer people go, I'm not selling you anything today. This isn't a pitch. It was in big letters there. This isn't a pitch. But just to go back to people who are still sat, because there are an awful lot of them out there, there's a lot of people still sat on the fence when it comes to creating digital content, video content, connecting with their audiences. The advice that you gave at the top of this discussion is very much the same advice you gave in the room that day in Wrexham is you don't need to use me. Yes, if you want it to look perfect, you want the lighting to be perfect, you want the editing to be perfect, come and see me. I know what we're doing. But you also said just pick up your phone and do it. So I'd like you to leave our agents today with a bit of value. can
Mhm.
you really just summarize to them? Because I think you did. You said, look, this is the equipment that you're going to need, and so on. So the
Yeah,
floor is
absolutely.
yours.
And the truth is, the best way to start is not by calling us and saying, "Okay, get me in the studio and let's go for it." The best way to start is get a feel for it for yourself, and get comfortable and get some reps in and make a few mistakes. And just to be clear, when you make a mistake, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. There's so much content out there. Um, People are much more interested in just the scroll, the scroll, the scroll. They're not looking to pick holes in people's content. So my advice would be a phone. I would suggest a very affordable microphone that you can plug into your iPhone and you can connect to your t-shirt here just for a bit of decent sound quality. And you can pick up a really good quality one for 40, £50 now. Some lighting. So, you can get a light ring that your phone sits in if you want to create content. That being said, we've got autumn, winter sunshine now. So being in front of a window will actually suffice as long as it's a nice bright day.
Yeah.
And directly into the camera. Now, most experts will say use the back camera because it's better quality. But actually, when you're first starting out, it's perfectly acceptable to use the front camera because you can see yourself and that makes you feel a bit better. And also, if you wanted to use a script, you can use very affordable teleprompter application tools on your phone. So you can maybe bullet point or script. My preferred method is when I started out was bullet pointing, what I wanted to discuss, because I felt that feel more natural. What I've learned over time is if you really want to hit the formula to create content that's going to perform well, a script works better because you can find yourself waffling on like I'm doing right now. But the formula for creating a nice video is to have an initial hook. So think of a headline, something that lets people know what you're going to talk about. Never introduce yourself. People are not on social media to meet you per se. They're there to ingest the content. So I might start with a bold statement and then go into providing some value. So maybe I'll teach something, maybe I'll help with something, maybe make some advice, maybe I'll try and make people laugh. That's not my specialty. And then the CTA, everyone's familiar with call to action. My most important advice is don't try to sell. People are not on social media to be
Yeah.
sold to. And so the CTA might be, I'd love you to follow me, or follow me because I'm going to post regular advice. So or it might be, if you like this, give me some feedback. Maybe hit the like. Not call me if you want me to sell your home.
Yeah.
That does not work. Um, One final piece of advice: if you're not sure what you want to talk about, property industry and what's happening in the market as opposed to what's happening to your business is more valuable. We sold 3 properties. Yeah, okay. Whereas the Chiswick housing market last week saw 33% more instructions come to market. That's much more powerful from a data perspective. But also, the advice I give is if you could only speak about 5 things for the rest of your life, what would they be? They're the things you're passionate about.
Yeah.
They're the things you should talk about online because it will be wildly authentic. And if you're passionate about them, so are other people. And that will build relationships and connections for you.
I think that makes absolute perfect sense. They are lovely people, very creative people at Digital Sparks. They've got a great team. They know what they're doing, and trusted by more and more property titans every day. But reach out to Ben. He is extremely accessible. Ben, just in another life, you are still an estate agent. You are also involved with Women in a State Agency. You are instrumental with mental health, stimulating that conversation with men in the boys' club. So many different hats, but they all have a property thread through them. Is it true to say that that is the kind of the first love of your life, in terms of not perhaps not people, but professions? Like property is the blood that runs through all of these veins here.
Yeah, as an industry, I've got a 20-year connection with it. And actually, I think when I first started out in property, I wasn't. I think as an industry, we weren't as well connected as we are now. And I started a business that was a little bit um, feisty and not maybe the best. It was reasonable education, but not great for interacting and relationship with other agents. Second business I ended up at was a much more lovely environment and learned some great stuff there. And then I think the last 10 years, we've seen a quantum shift in how agents communicate with each other and get on with each other. And we talked about lockdown. I ended up with so many new acquaintances that have turned into friends, I think, through lockdown. And so, yeah, I like the industry. I like the people in the industry. And yeah, I guess I've sort of, in a roundabout way, discovered that I quite like helping people in the industry. So,
You,
Boys
you
Club,
you catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar, right? That's the
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had a venture into a different industry a few years ago when we sold our first business, and it was a disaster. So it told me to stay in my lane, which I'm going to moving forward.
Excellent. Well, Ben, it's a great lane and good luck with everything. And we are looking forward to seeing you very much at the RAN conference on December the 11th. We will keep in touch. We're going to keep up with your antics and we'll check in again soon. Thank you.
Cheers, David.